So, welcome everyone. I'm happy to have you all there that we joined today. Our creative minds and forces and perspectives to open a conversation that has been going on since some months, since we are in the midst of UNMASC project and the workshop process where we have opened different topics of toxic masculinity, gender roles, gender-based violence, and patriarchal hegemonic narratives, where we have questioned those narratives and where we have played with stereotypes and looked for the solutions, how dealing with those narratives can be faced, or like how we can, as individuals in our microcosmoses, can find solutions, and how we can influence on micro level our surroundings, and how we can deal better with those challenges that are not going to disappear. And first of all, I would like to start with introducing ourselves and saying a couple of sentences about who we are, where we are, where do we stand. And yeah, I can start. I'm Danilo Jovanovic. I'm theater director, and also I'm having an artistic lead in the UNMASC project as a workshop leader, and also a co-director and co-author of upcoming theater show that is going to be the final activity in this project. And then I will give a mic to Diana.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Diana Stecker, and I'm an actress and working in art field, like performing or being a director's assistant for a few years in theater. And yeah, over the last year, I went with Bomino's theater workshop and got very inspired. And so I would take part in the next project of this. And yeah, I'm very excited about this Zoom call.
Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, thank you. My name is BiPoC. I'm 24 years old and I'm from Turkey. I've been involved with UNMASC in the research stage mostly last year. And yes, I'm happy to be here as well.
Hi, I'm Mengya. I'm from China, and that's why I'm unhappy maybe. And I'm doing my second master in gender history. So I'm clearly overeducated, and I want to find a job in McDonald's. And yeah, so enough joking.
Hi, I'm Yasmin, sometimes Anmol. I work here at the Kulturhaus Brotfabrik, mostly communications and social media related stuff, but I have a background in political science and nationalism studies. I also come from academia, so I have experience teaching courses about gender related topics and history and nationalisms and social movements, among other things. And I also have experience as a journalist. So, yeah, lots of different things under my belt. Happy to be here, though.
Thank you. Thank you. In the previous workshop process that we went through as a part of UNMASC project, we have opened many topics, and some of you were part of these workshops, and as Berke said, they were also part of the research process. So, we all have been involved in this project in different levels of different stages of the project. But there are a couple of things that has been marked through the project development, and now I'm referring to the workshop process, that we explore different stereotypes when it comes to toxic masculinity and gender roles and gender-based violence, and we were always ending up, how I've seen it and discussed with some of you, that we were always hitting a wall when we came to the point of solutions. The many experiences have been shared during the workshops, and what kind of challenges and issues and oppression, discrimination, harassment has been like shared in the space, and then when most of the cases we ended up with like hitting the wall, in the sense, okay, I was like, as someone who shared the experience in partnership violence or in my work, I had to step back or to leave my job or to move out of my place and so on and so forth. But in most of the cases, the perpetrator stayed more or less in the position of power. So the question is, I personally believe in microactivism and empowerment of the community on micro level, and supporting each other, and also related to care work. But the question is, how do we come to the point where we offer solutions? Is the microactivism, care work, and supporting each other, is that a level where we talk about solutions, or there is something? Of course, there is something outside of that, but what resonates with you? And maybe we can again start with Diana.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like finding a solution is always a big question with this topic. I for myself had a very tough thing in my workplace, where I had to stand up for myself against toxic masculinity and sexism in the workplace. So what I figured out myself was like, what do I want? Where I wanted to go with my solution. And I had some time to think about it, what I wanted to do with the situation. But I was like, I wanted to do something in a way. So not just talking and being like very hurt and upset, not knowing if I wanted to do your job any longer and stuff, but being very active. And so I had a few co-workers and someone working in PR, and she helped me out big times, and some other colleagues. And we get together. I think that's the first step, meeting people to maybe understand your own situation, and then you can come together. And what we did was to spoke out what happened to us, to very go against this guy who did so wrong and stuff, and spoke out about it. And that also was too tough, because the feedback was totally brutal, and so many people weren't allowed believing us. So yeah, that was a great solution for me, not being quiet and go against this guy who has now a less power in theater. He's still working that, but he's less power and stuff. And some people know about him that he is a pretty toxic guy and stuff. And but the big solution that I did was canceling the agreement to work there. So I got unemployed and moved away. So yeah, it also was not easy, but right now I'm feeling much, much better than before, that I spoke out, that I stand by myself, and yeah, getting like my power back over myself. That was pretty important. Yeah.
Thank you, Diana, for sharing and also like giving us insight into your personal experience. And yeah, like also for sharing the story that is not emotionally, psychologically, and on many other levels easy to go through. Who feels to as we are going back to the question of solutions, who feels like sharing something?
I mean, it's always frustrating that it's always like frustrating when it comes to like solutions. Like we can like deconstruct every situation. We can use all of these theories and concepts, but we all know that in like real life, it's who suffers, who makes change, and it's because like the whole system is designed for the designed for men and by men. I mean, which I mean heterosexual men who owns this privileged status, and I feel like they are kind of living in a vacuum. Like they don't know. Sometimes I feel like they don't even know who they are. They just spend their whole life building themselves a shelf and just hiding it. But when you actually look inside, you find nothing. They're like totally empty existence. I think the point is, like, we all know that we should make like personal relations, connect to each other, and on micro level we care for each other. But the point is, sometimes I feel like those people they can't relate it to anyone, and because they can't relate it to anyone, so that makes their whole life like pointless and meaningless. So they invent religion and war and anything else and philosophy maybe to make them feel like they are important. They can use these big words to like deal with everything, but when it comes to like real life, like interperson relations, they are like crippled or something. But if we like apply this kind of logic, it kind of give us an assumption that man can't change. So if they can't change, what are we gonna do? Like, I feel like it's their job. It's their job to like recognize their like real existence and do something. I mean, it's not our job to educate them, but I don't know, sometimes maybe two people, they can form alliance, or I don't believe in that philosophical thing. I think it's came up by a French philosopher, like two people can have this communist relationship. I always question, I mean, as a person who lives in a post-socialist country, I was like, communism? No thanks. But yeah, it is sometimes those changes happen between two persons, I think.
I just have to say that you gave me so many hints and so many doors popped up in my head with what you have shared, and so many like interesting potential topics. But let's also stick. I would like to have a short like round. Let's stick with this, because like also probably to both of you have some hints, but let's see where this is taking us.
For me, I think when you ask me the question of what's the solution, the first thought that comes to my head is, why are you uncomfortable when no solution is being presented? Perhaps it has something to do with your own masculinity and this confusion that comes with it. That's a speculation on my end. But also, I think in a lot of ways, this coming together and speaking about the experiences of historically marginalized minorities, minorities I say in quotes, is maybe the answer. Maybe us just speaking truth to power is enough to say something's wrong. It is, and I kind of second Munyan saying that this isn't, it's the responsibility on the marginalized and the affected and the oppressed to place that responsibility on them. Okay, you're coming forward with problems. Can you suggest some solutions? Is the most absurd thought to me. Because we're telling you something's wrong. These structures are not built for our bodies, for our experiences, for our existences. And you're saying, okay, well, how do we fix it? We're saying, can you at least first accept that something's wrong? You want me to put a Band-Aid on a crack in a building. It's just not going to happen. The other thought I have is, and I was thinking about this, especially when Diana was sharing her experience. When is the last time that you remember that a cis-het male in a position of power turned to literally anybody else and said, hey, do you have any suggestions on how I can be better? Because I don't. I could maybe count 2 in my head right now. And those were performative attempts at best. I remember having this conversation with a former colleague of mine where he is also a person of color. But he was speaking to me about his frustration when another colleague was experiencing a lot of discrimination. And I speak about this over and over again, about my disappointment in men of color, whether they are cis men or straight men is irrelevant, in their inability to be a part of those collectives and be true allies. When Diana speaks of coming together and like talking about a problem, I see it's often women or people read as women, people socialized as women who end up being at the front lines of it all. Whereas men fail us over and over again to kind of form true alliances and give proper support, exercise their power for something different. So for you to ask me, what could we do to fix this big crisis? I don't know. I don't have the answer. Maybe talk to people and listen to them for a start. Yeah.
And thank you. So many interesting things that you've shared. And I like this standing point of coming together. And this is something I call care work, also like and micro activism and like coming together and sharing. The question, of course, like as we all heard in this sharing before we started this podcast, this statement from Alok, do we need to organize crying workshops for cis hetero men, how they deal with their pain? And this is that something that I could relate with your statement that you said, I cannot recall any examples of cis men approaching or having at least a bit of self-reflection, and like coming from a place of being humble and place of true self-reflection and desire to grow, change, and learn. And this requires humbleness. And I could really connect like with this statement with Alok that we heard, that that is coming together really in a clear connection.
Yeah, thank you. Also, thank you for sharing the ideas. In terms of solutions, I was thinking of how Munyan, you talked about relating to people. I was also in my head like stuck to that point because I'd like to see that is like the first basic step of moving forward in this. Like relating to people and building a community, because I feel like this is one of the biggest reasons why everyone feels so they're facing a wall when it comes to this. Because in modern society, it's so hard to even like be in a community. There's so many ways it's been blocked from us. I don't know, like we're living in Vienna with 2 million people almost, and it's also like with so many people, you can also see how it's hard to be in a community. And I think this plagues people's activism too. You can't get together, and when you can't get together and experience like exchange lived in experiences, ideas, or how to fight back to an oppressive system, it almost gets impossible to feel like even that you're not alone in, I don't know, like being discriminated against or feeling oppressed. Yeah, I think this is also why I found the last year's like the research workshops and theater workshops really useful. I think, for example, art it's one of the biggest things that can help with that. It like we need some ways of bringing people together. And when a community or a shared space forms, that's when we can start, exchanging our experiences. And that's how like these sparks, I think, form.
I just feel tempted to, like, I'm reminded of, from what you're saying, of Bell Hooks, All About Love. In that book, there's a point where she talks about honesty, and that really stuck with me. I think so deeply about, like, why do men, I speak in broad terms, but why do men have such a hard time loving and being loved? And I keep being reminded of this section where she talks about not being able to be honest. I think to be loved, to form communities, to be, connect with people within that way, you need to be able to be honest with other people. And to be honest with other people, you have to be honest with yourself. And my experience with men over and over again has been that that's really where something is, it like really pinches a nerve. They will lie to partners, they will lie to siblings, they will lie to family members, they will lie to colleagues. And in that lying process, deny themselves the love that communities can bring, and they deny themselves the healing that these communities and spaces can bring. Yeah.
Yeah, also speak up about Hooks describes love. I think that another important point is, like, in some people's head, they can't separate love from violence. They think it's kind of a pair. If you reject violence, which means you reject love, and the desire to love is never as important as the desire to control people. I think that's the idea in like most of men's head.
False binaries, that's kind of... Now we're nerding out gender studies terms.
Diana, could we hear if you...
Yeah, it's like in my mind, like I can just talk about the situation I had, and I was like so disturbed in a way because actually when I was studying acting school, they always said mostly to a female person that whenever it could happen that some director's guy or some man in power position can came up to you and make some very stupid ideas with like being sexual to each other and stuff. So that was like, why is there always the need to warn the female people? It's always like we have to be very careful, how we act, how we not to be too friendly, not to be too lovely or something. It's always like we are always over the top how we are. And I was like, okay, it might happen. It might be just a tale that, you've been told. So actually, when I had this situation in my workplace, I was so disturbed and surprised because I knew this director for almost a year. I was working there and we worked out good together, and never mentioned anything that like, I don't know, oversharing or stepping over something that I felt uncomfortable. So then, there was this one night when he overstepped and came into my personal space, kinda, and I was so shook because I couldn't understand how he could make this up in his mind to try something out. Because he knew about me that I'm queer and, I'm very open with that. And I don't know, just this idea in his head that he can turn a lesbian or something. I don't know, it's this imaginary thing that many guys have. But it was so shocking for me. And then I was so hurt because I was not seen as a person anymore in his eyes. I was like, I don't know, a piece of meat or something, I was a desire that he wanted to take over. So yeah, still, I'm trying to figure out what's happening in those minds, when they, I don't know, can't feel just friendly with a female person. Is this such a thing? Because we worked out, we were funny with each other, but it was not always stepping, and then you just had to try and hit on you. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out for myself, to find an answer for me that I can, close the door and be like, okay, because I don't want it to overthink every time I'm meeting a guy, a male person, and be like, if I'm too funny or, if I'm always too much in a way that he can, I don't know, have a wrong idea or something, because it should not be our problem that we have to take ourselves always steps back and not live our lives because we always have constantly to think about how we talk, how we look, and that's still a thing. That's, always is shocking me every time I'm confronting with that part. Yeah. Crazy.
Thank you. We have so many, we kind of tackled so many interesting and also hard things through so far. And for me, like there are two things that came to my mind. A friend of mine, 2019, she made a theater show based on her rape experience. She was participating also in the last workshop, so some of you have met her. And in her the thing that, like, referring to what Diana just said, the first thing, one of the first thing that judge on the trial, because they caught the rapist, and then there was a trial. There were multiple women, in this case, who were affected by this perpetrator and rapist. And then the judge asked about how she was dressed, and is her skirt was too short, and it's somehow it's the question of this: am I too much? What I'm doing? And her theater piece was called "Would You Like to Meet Again?" because that was the last thing that the rapist said to her. Would you like to meet sometime again? And that was the title of the show. And somehow the question is, there is two directions. One that is also interconnected is making myself, as someone also who survived the partnership violence from my physical violence from my ex-partner, is the question. And then I also got the question from friends: were you provoking? So making ourselves smaller in order to play the game and not to provoke, which and the other line, how I see it, was something that Yasmin said was very important, is the not willingness to step into healing. Mm-hmm. What is, because it is, it's two different lines, but you understand, without this willingness to step into the painful, dirty work of healing, we cannot, we cannot go out of this loop. Am I making myself smaller in order to play the game, not to provoke or to if it has sense what I've just said.
Yeah, of course it has sense what you said, but I think there's on the flip side of the coin, the other side of the coin is another element which I keep being, kind of confronted with, experiencing over and over again, is there, and by there I'm talking about men or people who harm other people. They are also automatically granted this access to innocence or unawareness that the person who is affected is not. So on the one side, you say, what were you wearing? Did you provoke, etc., etc. But on the other side, there is the assumption of their innocence, which may even be true. It's like, you were talking about the theater piece, Would You Like to Meet Again, reminded me of another case in Pakistan. There was a woman who was also raped in a park. And after, the perpetrator gave her money and he said, why don't you take a rickshaw and get home safe? It's no good time for a woman to be out at this hour. And there's this disconnect, right? You immediately are like, this sounds absurd. How could he do something like this? But it's in his head, he is protecting her. He's doing a good thing. He taught her a lesson. And if in my experience of working or training as a therapist, what I would learn over and over again was that men who had done horrible things were never willing to even understand that they had caused this harm because of the way these structures kind of empower them to be. I hear Diana and I feel so emotional because recently I came out and I spoke out about some harassment, and a colleague of mine in that moment was so emotional that she asked me, yes, but is it possible that the other person who harassed you possibly did not know that he was causing this harm? And my response to that is, of course it's possible. I think it's very likely that people who cause the harm are unaware. But the point is their unawareness or our assumption of their innocence is also rooted within these structures of heteropatriarchy that empower precisely this kind of problematic behavior.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes they feel like they're entitled to get something. Like they feel like it's their right to get something. And like a few years ago, I was like harassed by a totally fucking stranger, and I reported to the police, and the police said, "Is there any possibility that he just want to make friends with you?" I was like, "Okay, is this the normal way to make friends?" And so in this case, we can like obviously get it's like structural violence towards victims. It's not like one man or a group of men. It's like men are rapists, but they are also the judge.
Yeah.
Entitlement is a very interesting, not perspective, but like interesting part of this, and often the source of my personal frustration with, even with my friends, in the place where I lived, and it was a big WG. I remember that we had this rule we had a huge garden that no shirtless thing, and Flinter people would never even try to undress themselves and walk shirtless but men and guests who would come, they would do this, and then we would have to intervene and tell them, no, like you can't walk shirtless here. And it is a thing where I also feel often intimidated by my friends. We are on the coast, on the seaside, and then you walk in the street in the midst of the old town or somewhere, and then you have this desire to showcase your body, and then you would remove your t-shirt and walk amongst a bunch of people who are not on the beach, and then kind of be entitled to take over the space just because I can be shirtless, and walk shirtless. And many of them were not even ready to question this when I tried to say, like this is taking a space, this is toxic masculinity, like, and so on and so forth. But I think in the center of all this, what we're discussing today, it is entitlement to these, quote, like kind of smaller things. Nothing is small, like walking shirtless, to what you have, Monia, what you have mentioned, when it goes really crossing out boundaries and causing harm.
But it ties in, doesn't it? Because the thread here is the disrespect towards other people, and the disrespect here stems from failing to even acknowledge them. You're so used to asserting yourself in spaces that you're not even realizing that this regular everyday event of assertion of yourself, of your being, is precisely the discrimination, silencing, and harassment or abuse of so many others. Yeah.
There is also another layer of this which comes with social norms, social conditioning, and from where do we come from? In the place of the world where I do come from, the violence is so that the boundary, like the boundaries of violence are so pushed with the war, with genocide, with what we had in the Balkans, that you would even today hear the sentences, "Ah, but this is nothing," like, because the scale of violence is so pushed that sexual or someone made a joke on someone like, this is not even like perceived as that there is something wrong with it.
Yeah, and I feel like we always, not we, like the four of us, it's like the majority of the society, the mainstream, are always finding excuse for the bad behaviors conducted by men. It's like, okay, you may harass a woman on the street, but you're also born in a miserable family. So, yeah, there's something wrong with your family. It's not your own fault. But we need to like acknowledge one thing is that, okay, there may be some like painful, traumatic past of this person, but it won't cancel the like actual harm he did to other people. Like, we need to stop find excuse. We need to stop like go all the way down through his past, and he's like kindergarten, maybe he was bullied, maybe like he has an unhappy childhood. All of this can't cancel the actual harm he did to other people.
Exactly. Diana, would you like to give us some insight on this entitlement topic or perspective?
So with perspective, what I was finding very interesting, like the part of how we being raised is very big part of how we act and react in a way. And I also for myself, because I have a German-Russian background. So my parents were born and raised in Russia, but are German citizens. So yeah, so they came back after 1989, so when the war calmed down, and so they came back to a very different country they don't know, and it's very anxious in Germany and everything. So they had to learn a lot of things. And so with those memories they had in their childhood, how they grew up and stuff, because my mom, in a way, she was very independent. So she worked and she had a good job and stuff in Russia. And my dad had a difficult childhood, I would say, from my point of view. But when they came to Germany and they met in Germany and they got married, and just kind of like 9 months later, I was brought into this world. So everything very quick, and they were pretty young. I think that's very making so many things so difficult when you move to a country that's not feeling very like home, you know. And culture wise, they kind of mixed it with Russian German culture things. And so that's how I grew up, with like very Ukraine, Russian kitchen in a way. But we were always talking like German, because my parents wanted for me and my brother to learn speak German and stuff, to not get like picked on in school and stuff. But I found it so interesting that my mom was so independent before she got married and had kids. That definitely changed when she had me as a daughter, as a first child, and then a daughter, and that kind of changed, because I had the feeling always that I have to be very girly and dress nice, and not being that much allowed playing in the band or something, you know, being very girlish. And that's what I found pretty difficult, because so many things memorized in your DNA. And I was like, but mom, you always have stories like how you were very rebellious and independent. Why do I have to boost from Berlin? And that was always a topic because you can't just, I don't know, I found it so difficult to have a kid and raise this kid is like in a one gender way. Because we were born female, you have to be very female, and that's such a big thing still. And we like going back in time because more often kids will be born and they will do like credit in this just two genders, and that's more in common. Or like the last 10, almost 15 years. Like we're going back in this picture with birds and boys and toys are separated and stuff. And that's also makes so difficult in such an unrooted role. So yeah, I'm with this all this gender and how you grow up in which environment you grow up and how are your parents feeling in themselves if they're not very sure about themselves. Like my dad, who's often very insecure, so who's reacting very. A lot of times he was very aggressive in a way, and and then he reacts, and then I'm reacting because he taught me to be like that. So there are so many elements that play into this game of life and how you taught your kids to be nice or being not nice or boys will be boys and all those things. I mean, that's not, you should not throw those things like it's a nice thing to say. You have to really need things what you say. Why you say boys will be boys. It's just another excuse why they're hitting girls or, so many, I don't know, topics and stuff that can be discussed in a way where is the start, where the roots of all these discussions we having or all those things we seeing in the world, or we were put in situations like why is this happening to me? Like I was asking myself that hundreds of times, why me, why you? And in the end of the day, it's not about me personally, obviously. It's just because I'm another female person, and being attractive and nice. And that's like two things that guys can't stand in a way and they have to hit on it. So, yeah, it's a huge topic. It's a lot of thinking and brainstorming. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Diana. It's bringing us to something that is very in what was my kind of thinking process while you were sharing, something that is very accurate globally, which is completely canceling, denying trans rights. Like this morning, I was reading news that it's already started implementing, like talking about gender, boys, girls, who like it's very related that already in US T as acronym for trans, it's already taken out from all official websites of the US government.
Yeah. They're taking back so many things.
Exactly. And then this is bringing us to this binary, silly, binary world of boxes. Where should we and how should we fit? And it's also happening in Austria in a way with the Supreme Court banning. Am I right?
So in Austria, there's a difference between, there's a very high court. I don't know how to translate that, but it's sort of the court that looks at the cases, and then there's a court above that that looks at the Constitution. So not the one that looks at the Constitution, but the one below that recently passed a judgment that basically made it impossible for trans and non-binary people to be recognized because it tied gender to people's body parts. So yeah.
No, that's so insane. Yeah, because I watched the news lately often because I was this week with friends in Germany and stuff. And the guy who's a very good friend of mine, and we were colleagues back in the day. He's also very invented in the politics, like how it is in Germany right now. And we were discussing the situations, and I was like, we have no idea where to turn, because where should we go? Where should we move? Maybe should we move away? Because politics-wise, I mean, a lot of people are in this situation where they're moving because of politics, because of war and stuff. So it's like, it's a feeling like it's there daily, on a daily basis, you start thinking, where should I go? Because we don't feel safe anywhere anymore. Like, what the heck? Why is this getting so complicated? And in the interesting part, I think you have to look at the people who make it so freaking difficult. It's not the queer people, it's not the trans people who make it difficult. It's always some, I don't know, some male person who is like feeling unsafe in himself, and like he's giving up space in a way, putting it into quotes. Feeling unsafe because of queer people or trans people or whoever, like even about women and all, and that's like so crazy. How can it be so untrue? You should go, I don't know, go to therapy or have a fly art or go to workshops, how to learn to be a normal person. Like, where is that?
I would like to bring us back, Berke, you were pointing out here the importance of community. And I think in this sense, and also with this latest challenge for the LGBT community, especially for trans community, like I think the importance of community, the definition of community and who is our community, is sexual orientation something that is connecting us? How, as people with the migrant background identity, how, what is where do we find community? What is this and importance of community in this when facing challenges like this?
Yeah. How do we find community? This is also something I've been thinking a lot about. So I don't have a really clear answer for myself on that too. Yeah, art is I think a big factor in bringing people together. But on the importance of it, I think I find it also very important in kind of recalibrating our purpose in activism. Because in my experience, at least in my life, I have always been finding importance in going to the protests, for example. I think there's so much power in that, in being together in that way. But yeah, in my experience, I'm just recently realizing that how much of my activism was fueled by just hate towards, capitalism or men or the police. I don't whatever the context was. In my early years too, I think another big big thing we need to consider in our activism is love. I think it's much more of a feeling. And I think this is why community is important, because if we are fighting for our sisters or other oppressed people we know, I think it becomes much more easier to get through the day, because it's also kind of your responsibility to yourself and to the people standing next to you to do something, basically.
Yeah, I agree. Like, what I've learned from activism and working in NGO is there's no like permanent ally. Like, always different groups of people. Like, we work on one topic, we work on like one movement, and after that maybe we'll split, and then maybe in next crossroad we'll meet each other again. You can't ask for like a unity. If you ask for unity, then maybe it'll lead us to fascism. So I think maybe we should stop like asking people to like perform this kind of absolutely correct activism, because there's no like correct activism. There's no like correct behavior. There's no such thing like that. In every movement, there's definitely, we form some solidarity, and we have argument, we have fight, we split up, but you need to believe that we'll meet each other again.
Which brings me to a question of queer community, and something that was kind of part of my experience as a queer person and gay man, is the lack of when you mentioned that no ally is permanent, and we look, but what I've noticed is the lack of self-reflection, of self-awareness in a gay man or queer man, like a gay man, in the LGBTI plus community or queer community, and it's the simplest like thing that when some of my Flinta friends are visiting, and there is no place, there is Flinta as place, and in Vienna, but there is no actual place that is not queer place in Vienna, like a social, like club, where that is not dominantly occupied by gay men, like and it's, if we just observe through that in Belgrade, in this queer club, let's put it, but gay, they charge more to Flinta people entrance.
Yeah.
And it is like, if we talk about allyship and inside of LGBTIQ community, without gay men willing to reflect, be humble, put their egos down, question their privilege, Zugang, the approach to Flinta people, then it's really, we're screwed up. And this is something that bothers me, because I talk to a lot of my gay friends and I see this lack of this understanding. Who am I? It's like the activism that we were talking about, the care work, is me every day asking myself, how much space do I take in this conversation? How big, like with my body, with my voice, and with knowing that it's never going to be perfect, but willingness to question that and to hear. If, for example, Yasmin is telling me, you took too much space in this meeting as a working colleague, to take to acknowledge that and to think of it for the next time, to learn and to grow from it. And this is for me like the center of the healing, of growing, of learning and working on ourselves.
Yeah. I agree with everything that Berke and Manya also said, and I think it's about reorienting our politics towards a politics of love. And also the whole consistency and the the uniformity element, to accept that will not exist. I wanted to, I don't know, when you mentioned you wanted to talk about solutions, I wanted to also say like, I think that for us, the reality today is postmodern, where meta narratives or like meta solutions, big scale answers for anything are not possible, but also maybe shouldn't exist. And maybe the solution lies in very small, everyday things. I've said this over and over again. Maybe other people say it too. But I really live by this. I think the most radical thing I ever did was exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I choose to do it.
Yeah.
I choose to exist. I choose to do it in my radical, full, complete self. And it's messy and it's arbitrary and confusing, but that's what I choose.
Yeah, as a like woman of color, like living in a foreign country, like every day to us is like we are having asthma. We can't fucking breathe. Like breathing for us is basically everything.
Yeah. And there are reminders everywhere you go, even in the safety of your home, in your bedroom, in your bed, under my bed when I'm crying. Reminders after reminders that this is not built for me.
Yeah. And you don't belong here.
Yeah. And you don't belong here.
Yeah. Like you're the mistake in the matrix, kind of.
Yeah.
Like you get a feeling that you're a person will be brought in the world to be the one who always make a mistake, who are always wrong, who are always too much, who will never be enough, so that people person can just develop, I don't know, until, I don't know, the sky's the limit kind of thing. And yeah, that's also what you said, Camilo, with the community. It's also such an interesting thought, because when I moved to Vienna, I was like so excited for the Flinta, the queer community, because I never had a big crowd of people. So I was like, okay, you moved to Vienna, it's a big city, you have a feeling that people are more open, there are more spaces. But actually, yeah, I was so shocked that there's not really, I don't know, I've never been to one Flinta party that often. There is not really a club or a bar for, I don't know, lesbian in a way. It's not existing anymore. And that's kind of, yeah, I don't know where to find a safer place or a safe place to go and you can meet other female person. But it's also like, yeah, and often I had one moment with a gay guy. He was a friend of my roommate, and he was like, yeah, very, very gay. He was like outspoken. He was like, I don't care if you don't like me, I don't like you either. And he figured out over the evening we got ready for the party and stuff. And he figured out that I'm actually a queer guy, I'm lesbian. And he was 80. You hear that? And he was like, "Oh, are you Dutch? Are you?" He was like, "Yeah." It was so uncomfortable for you because I thought like we as a gay man would more likely understand my situation. But still, he's a man who's trying to make my life art and me feeling being wrong. And well, not for me not having the space that I totally would deserve.
I have to add something on top of this, that the reproduction of toxic masculinity and patriarchal stereotypes within amongst the gay men is really insane. and like uh, like from the basics, like how the sexual positions are defined, that those who are being bottom are sluts, and those who are being tops are just like, you're
Hard daddy.
yeah, exactly, you're like, this is something that is very and it still very much exists, but accountability, this is something that what I've heard also what Diana was saying, like holding people accountable for their actions, for their words. And what Monia was saying previously, also related to any man, but in this case, like if we talk about the queer context and queer, like gay men, not finding, we all went through different challenging situations, traumas. We all more or less survived a lot of shit. And finding his excuses for someone, I catch myself finding excuses for my partner who beated me, like physically, like that's the kind of latest, like the last line when someone crosses the boundary of your body. And when you went to, like, it goes to physical violence, I was finding excuses. Oh, he went through this, he went through, like, which is then ending up in this, like, supporting the circle of violence and not holding people accountable for their actions.
I mean, to that, I would say victimhood does not, I don't glorify it, and I say that as someone who has survived or lived through abusive relationships of all levels of abuse you could imagine. It's not a glorious thing that somehow puts me above in any way, yeah, but to the other thing about the space and not being allowed that space. I think Diana also made several references to it, and I'm always reminded of James Baldwin in his interview, when the interviewer asks him, like, you fled and now you're in Paris, and he says, "What have I survived? What have I fled? Where is the success
I know
in
this
this?"
interview, yeah.
It's the most powerful thing ever, where is a fleeing Black man supposed to go? And I ask myself this, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, of like me being reminded I shouldn't be existing here. The connector to that is, where else would I exist? Where else would I be accepted in my entirety? And where else would anybody really be accepted for who they are in their entirety? I once did this. I once was my ex husband was a teacher, and he asked me. He used to teach in an all boys school, and he was like, "I'm having a really hard time teaching kids feminism, feminist theory, and since you teach political thought, maybe you could just come over one day and teach." And I go there, and there's a room full of 16-year-old boys.
Wow.
Yeah, daring.
Nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing that happened there was that all of those boys opened up about how patriarchy had been violent towards them. And to my knowledge, they were all cis, het, straight, 16-year-old boys in a very privileged school in an extremely privileged, life situation. I think they had available to them all levels of privilege you could imagine. And yet patriarchy harms them and pains them.
Berke wanted to
Sorry.
show.
Difficulty.
No, I want you to go back.
Yeah, you can go back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's. Can I have a mouth? Maybe you want that.
Okay. A very interesting thing that what Yasmin just mentioned and that I experience over and over in theater is this, and I think that's also like the power of what Perke was referring, the power of art. When we come to the point where men actually see how patriarchy is affecting them too. And this is very, in my experience, it usually requires digging really deep and like pushing and like stretching and like finding that place. But once we get there, like there is a lot of this coming up. But that's something that I love in theater and in art, the power to I always say that in theater, and at least the way I understand it and I practice it, the healing is a side effect. We never go with the idea that we will heal through theater, but that happens somehow as a side effect of some process we're going through. But like talking about solutions is, it's a very interesting. I still stayed in my mind what Yasmin said. Why do we have to talk about solutions? Why, from where the need comes to talk about and to offer solutions. But during this workshop process, we were sharing a lot what we also shared today, and my personal feeling was that my frustration with being what I've experienced and seen as a gay man from other gay men and lack of accountability and all the things that I mentioned was also an inspiration. Frustration can anger, and frustration can also, it's a moving force, was inspiration to kind of see, okay, to question myself again. Is there something I don't see? There's something that I can do more and different. And there is always something as a queer, gay man, white, and so on and so forth, with all the privileges that are coming with that. And then also coming to the point of like the art as a solution, and what you have just said, that some kind of transformation had happened in that space with those boys that you were working with for a couple of hours. Because if just, I always say in theater or in art, if just one person got moved or got connected or touched with some content we presented on stage, we did our job. Because I believe that change, it multiplicates itself.
Yeah. I mean, I always say I can die happy now that I convinced a room full of 16-year-old boys to kind of at least consider radical feminism as a good alternative theory to live by. So, yeah. But I'm really curious, like personally, if you both feel like sharing more about your experience with queer men. Like, and lack of accountability. I know this from like lesbian and other queer circles where men were not quite welcome, but I've never quite heard gay men or queer men speak more openly about it. So,
which aspect?
I mean, whatever.
Whatever.
It's
a very
Spill the
it's a
tea.
very broad thing, but as I said, for me on a personal level, it's I had encounter a date last week, and then this guy, he asked me, what is queer? What means queer? He referred it to something else. And then I have a problem with how it's demonstrated nowadays. I'm the bit older generation, and I said to him, questioning everything and any norm and questioning yourself on a daily basis. And this is kind of my definition back then, reading Michel Foucault and queer theory 20 years ago. But if I would have to explain queerness in one sentence, it would be that. And that would be my approach to my gay identity. Sometimes I say I identify myself as a gay man, sometimes as a queer person, depends from the context. But it's constant questioning, willingness to sit in front of 40 years ago when we were producing a theater piece about being a queer migrant man. On stage with me, there was my black friend from Ethiopia. And the feedback that we got from our friends and theater practitioners and other artists, you're reproducing racist narratives in this show, before it went out. And the humbleness to sit on the floor in front of this group and said, yes, I acknowledge I've heard this. We're willing to work through it and to bring it in a different level. And this is the accountability that I'm striving for in my work on a daily basis, to be humble, to hear. You always recognize by heart when it doesn't come from a mean place, when it comes with the pure intention from another person, and then you receive, you let that enter your space, and then question, you hear and learn from it. And this would be the main thing as a queer gay man on the level that relates to healing, that relates to activism, knowing that you will never be perfect, but to approach it with open eyes and to constantly question.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think this is where it comes to for me, to the question of accountability. Because when it comes to politics, I think everyone, including me, has some kind of cognitive dissonance. Like, it's hard to think two opposite things at the same time. Someone can be queer and they can have experienced horrible things because of it, but they can still be benefiting from their masculinity, for example. And I really liked how you, like 10 minutes ago, brought up the discourse of top and bottom. Like, in the queer community, this is still you can still feel it very much, that the idea of a heteronormative couple, a man and a woman, still lives in some form, like, for example, in the top and bottom discourse.
Very much.
Yeah. And it's, I think really hard when it comes to you or people you know to accept both things at once. Also, we were talking about like half an hour ago, like when it comes to sexual harassment, like someone can be a really good son or a very kind person, but they can still have like committed sexual violence to someone. And this is where it's hard to accept these truths. This is where the denial also comes in. Yeah. So it's really important, even in minority spaces, in queer spaces, in immigrant spaces, to question this constantly.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like a huge disappointment for me actually stems from queer or LGBTQ plus friendly, at least, communities where they fail to go beyond heteronormativity, and that their toxicity is so much damaging because so many people who were failed by their so-called biological families or even social families come together in these communities and then are failed by these communities as well. I think that's where like true pain for me lies. Well, no.
Diana, would you like to, because we're slowly coming to an end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not well, that's long. I don't, it's only something in my head right now, but I feel so good that we came together today and had this talk. And I always have this feelings when I'm like in your workshop, Camilo. There's always a space where we can talk openly. I never have a feeling that when we come together that there is like a moment where I shush myself, where I stop talking, because yes, in the queer community, there's also some any longer in this way you get put into like boxes, and not all. And also, we're came tonight is going to talk about how gay men treat each other in relationship. There's also this thing how women treating each other in relationships, and how often the thing is that women who are bisexual, I never included me. That's often a topic that I get confronted, because a friend of mine, she's bisexual. She's always like, yes, I'm bi. I know I'm not accepted. I never said anything. She always had this thing in her mind that she's not gay enough. Also, and also we have this thing like with the power bottom, and also we have the what came into my mind, the pillow princess stuff. That's also a thing. Yeah, that's so heteronormative relationship thinking that we have in our community. That's also, yeah, always remembers me that there's still like space to kind of develop our stuff in a better way, to get lost in those boxes. You know, we are just like, yeah, we are just people, and we love who you love. That's always a staying in the community, but still there's so many layers. Who's a better queer person, and yeah, it's also kind of crazy because you never get lost in this world where you always have to have a goal. You know, it's always having a goal. If you're a hetero person, you have goals. You have to get married and be a good person, be a great mom. If you're gay, there are goals you have to kind of reach. Because
You have a dog.
I don't know, that society and stuff, you know, that's also a thing that's always in my mind.
Indeed. In my case, as a queer person who wants to have a dog.
No, dogs are the best. We should do a podcast about dogs.
Yes.
The better topic.
Definitely.
It's less depressing.
Yeah.
Would anyone, because I have a feeling that it's definitely a strong feeling that we have opened so many interesting, we tackled so many interesting perspectives and points with this, that we have a material like from this that we can do 5 other episodes of the podcast. Every question we had, and we were moving forward and forward, we went deeper and deeper and bringing another layer. But would anyone would like to add something for the closure, or we should close? How do you feel? Is there anything important to underline, highlight?
Oh, those like to say just one sentence, like keep going. Just, you know, we always open a topic in the workshops, and there are so many feelings and emotion and layers and layers and layers. I think after today, after this Zoom talk, I feel so much better again. That's always so good. It's not like like going to therapy situation. It's not that. It's just feeling good in my community and in my standing and what's my topic. So just like, let's keep going. That's just what I wanted to say. Just power up and don't stop.
That was very beautiful.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, people always think if you speak up, if you constantly repeat your experience, then you are complaining. It's annoying. It's disturbing even. But it's not complaining, it's honesty. And even it's complaining. Yes, we are complaining. There's so many things to complain. And, well, complaining is also, like, for me, it's civil disobedience. Right?
Yeah.
It's our, like, everyday resistance. We just talk to our friends, complaining, gossip, do everything. Just use our voice, okay? You have your mouth, use it.
Definitely. Great. People, thank you for coming together and maybe this is solution. Maybe this podcast is
Talking is the solution.
is a solution.
Talking and dogs.
It can be a good solution even for ourselves, for our egos, because there are so many podcasts out there about male cis men, white cis men, who are giving out like tricks and tips how to approach a woman and shit. So I'm saying let's go with this podcast because I think there are a few people our topics and with the talks and with the cluelessness of life, also a better solution and working against those other podcasts about man being man.
Yeah, make podcasts great again.
Yes,
Man,
definitely.
feel.